So yeah, it's kind of one of these things where it does feel like because the meta shifts, sometimes these timings change, right? And
Yeah.
how people are doing builds change, and then there's always, even with this sort of knowledge, it always like changes depending on your skill level and just how people are executing it that you're playing against. Because like what was that? I saw someone do 3 racks versus Zerg the other day, but they went no Hellions to start. So instead of doing like the Hellion, normally you'd go like 2 to 4 Hellions, 3 command centers, then you'd go into like your 2-on-1. Sorry, not a 3 rack, so 2-on-1. But this guy just did a 2-on-1 and a third command center, with the third command center going down even before the factory started, and it was just like this like kind of a 3cc, kind of a 2-on-1, not the optimized 3cc 2-on-1 build though, because the command center was still after the second barracks. It was just kind of like a real mix and match sort of build order, and you will always get those sort of oddballs. But I do feel as well, I'm not sure what the experience is for people who are in Twitch chat or yourself on the ladder, but like, do you feel like there are certain builds that are like really dominant right now that you wanted to focus on today, and things like, oh, everyone's going for 2 factory Cyclone Hellion or something like that? Or
No, I feel like it's it's like either I meet a player that's just like really tight and I just get blindsided or just overwhelmed, or it's somebody who just like freestyles and does nothing. So it's like some people seem to practice like one sharp timing, and while other people don't do anything useful, let's say.
yeah, they kind of just feel their way through, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, looking at
What?
the timings in this document, or this web page, they're actually pretty decent. Like I think these all still hold up just fine. It's just a matter of like, are there other things that are more popular these days, right? Or are there little adjustments and details to these that we would need to talk about potentially?
Right. Let's say you were to invent a new build, would you say that this could be like a useful checklist of like what can kill me when?
Oh, like so you'd kind of cross-reference your build against that
Yeah.
list, you mean?
Yeah.
Um, I think the most important thing would be the pressure timings, right? The common harassment timings, and then you could. So the first step would be like, okay, if I'm just making a build myself, I've got to remember to be ready for the Hellion run by, right? The 4 Hellion run by. Okay, cool. So we've got like that would be really important. If we scroll down to Zerg versus Protoss, the Oracle Open is really important, but also like double Adept is another thing. Like if you play against a lot of people who chrono 2 Adepts across, right? Being ready for 2 Adepts coming in at about, I don't know what time they arrive, 3:20, I want to say, probably. Usually it's just before link speed finishes, about 3:20, 3:30. Usually like just those very common early harassment timings. And then I would finally think about cross-checking against, I guess, actual timing attacks. But yeah, it's funny because I normally don't. If I'm thinking of a build, I guess the way I think of it is it's a lot more focused on there is a standard way. There's probably I'm wondering if it's almost subconscious, but where basically there's somewhat standard rules, right? So what are we looking out for? Number one, I guess if we just put this in numbered form, as most common harass timings, right? Harass timings. So basically, that's going to be number 1, Oracle, first 2 Adepts, first 4 Hellions. Obviously, the Reaper even before that. If you're like, why don't I just go 3 hatch before pool? Oh, that Reaper's kind of an issue. And link speed finishing, right? Ling, potential Ling flood or just a harassment, whatever it is, right? It could be 6 lings, it could be 30 Zerglings. Yeah, I guess those are things you would kind of just build some sort of defense in. But I almost feel like those things should be pretty standard anyway, because if you're making a build, usually you're just going to be copying a normal opening anyway, right? And then you're going to be kind of doing other things from there. I guess it feels rare in Legacy of the Void with the 12 worker start to really be going away from a tried and true opening build order when you're playing defensive. It's only if you're being like, I'm going to do a 12 pool hatchery in the wall rush or something like that. And that's when you're deviating so far from the norm, but you're also being so aggressive. So you don't need to worry about defensive timings at all, if that makes sense.
Right, right.
So you were just kind of brainstorming this stuff yourself, or were you looking at making new builds? Like what drove you down this line? Or you just felt like, hey, let's just kind of understand some theory a little bit deeper?
Yeah, just geek out on some timings.
Cool.
When I see, it's also when I see people ask questions in Twitch chat, they're like, what do I do when there are like 5 battlecruisers warping in at 2 minutes 30? And that's impossible, because if you knew those timings, you would sort of eliminate all of those possibilities. So it's also just fun to memorize stuff.
No, absolutely. I mean, why don't we just go down a list then, and just like we can just kind of come up with some stuff then. So to do this in any sort of organized fashion, kickstart the discussion, get us going. Let's go through matchup by matchup. So which one do you want to start with?
Let's start with TERRAN versus Zerg.
All right, let's go ZvT. All right, so first things we've got Reaper. Reaper's going to arrive at your base. So a Reaper should pop. And I'm just going to write pro timings down. Keep in mind, if you watch a lot of pro games, they're really sloppy with their builds these days. If you're not Clem's Reaper will pop at 158 almost every game. Other players' Reapers do not. Beyond, I'm looking at you, mate. You got to fix your openings. He's a little inconsistent sometimes. Yeah, most people it actually pops like 201, 202. But, technically it should be 158 on a map with good mining. If you're playing like Abyssal Reef or King's Cove or Neon Violet, that's a bit harder to do consistently because the minerals are a bit less consistent on older maps. But on the newer maps, you should usually be able to do that. So Reaper pops at 158, and usually it's going to take, about 30 seconds to get across the map. So it should hit about 228. And obviously, normally, maybe 225, 220? Let's say 220, because I think your spawning pool is normally going to finish at about 202. 203, and then with a hatchcast pool, and then you can start your queen, which takes 29 seconds to build. No, 36 seconds actually. Let me take a look. How long does a queen take to build? Wikipedia, my old friend. 36. It is 36 seconds. Okay, cool. And then we can go pool finishes. So basically a pool starts, let's say a minute 14 of 16, 18, 17. Who knows? Maybe it's slightly faster with the recent build. Oh, have you tried the 15?
No.
The 15 Overlord?
Nope.
You've watched Lambo's video,
saves you
though?
16 minerals or something.
Yeah, it's just slightly more efficient. It's really nice because it makes it naturally easier, like to get your hatchery down as well. If you're always getting blocked in ZvP and you hate it. So, did you watch Lambo's video about it, or?
No. I've heard all the rumors.
It's really self-explanatory. Like a lot of people, every time I mention this, they're like, so this is how I do it, right? And I look at it and I'm like, that's a 13 Overlord. They're like, yeah. And I'm like, it's a 15 Overlord build. They're like, so when do I do everything? I'm like, there's only one way to do 15 Overlord. You build 14 drones, you do an extractor trick, you build a 15th Overlord. The only question should be what happens after that in terms of order. But I found that really funny that a few people were getting that part confused. I'm like, guys, if you just literally look at your replay and try it again, you've got to figure out what you did wrong. 15 Overlord. So yeah, essentially you just do that extractor trick, and then because you get out normally you build one drone, then you wait for another 50 minerals, then build an Overlord, and then you wait for another 50 minerals to build the 14th drone. And then you got to wait for the Overlord to pop, and you build the 15th and 16th. Instead, at the same time, essentially, that you would start the Overlord, you're already getting up to 15 drones producing, or just after that, because you do need money for the extractor as well, the 25 minerals for that. So it's it's just slightly more efficient. What's nice is you can then go to the natural and expand. It's super great if you want to rush to make yourself unblockable. You can go 15 hatchery before Overlord off this opening in ZvP, right? So that's a really nice bonus of it. So basically it's gives more minerals. It's just slightly more efficient, right? That's the main thing. But then if you want to make your own self-blockable, you can go before Overlord on 15. Shin's been doing it on 14, which I'm like, that's just unnecessary. I'm pretty sure he could still go for the extractor trick, do it on 15, it'd be slightly better. But it is what it is. Or you can go Overlord, as Cyril does a lot of the time. Go 15 Overlord. Send the drone down in time to start a 15 hatch. But if you don't see the probe, you build a 16th drone, then go 16 hatch. So it's the same build, you just send your drone down slightly early. So you have the option to go for a bit of a faster hatchery. If you go 15 hatchery there, I think it's 42 seconds. I'd need to check Cyril's recent ZVPs. I haven't watched last night's games, by the way, guys. Did see the results. Cyril, 42. 42. 16th drone. The 16 hatch should be 46 seconds with this build, assuming you're doubling your workers up correctly. So that's kind of cool. All right, so back to ZvT. Yeah, so basically pool starts at 1 minute 14, takes 46 seconds. That's going to take, finish at 2 minutes. It's more like 2:01 a lot of the time. Basically, that's 2 minutes, which means queens take 36 seconds, should pop about 2:36, which means the Reaper's going to have, let's say the Reaper gets to your base at 225 because he's faster than a drone, right? When we measure rush distances, we say, oh, this map is a middle rush distance map, takes 34 seconds to get to the enemy base. We're talking about main ramp to main ramp from a worker moving, right? Reaper's a little faster than that. It is, of course, popping out at your ramp, but it's going to get there in, say, 27 seconds or whatever the number is, 26 seconds, right?
Right.
Depending on the map size. So Reaper will have about 10 seconds. Reaper will have about 10 seconds to do damage, and that's when your lings buy time, right? 4 to 6 lings have to buy time and protect drones during that 10 seconds. Now, if you think about it, the 15-15 build, do you know about that one?
Yes.
So that's different to the 15 Overlord, right? The 15-15 is the build where we go basically, you know, Sarah was doing it a lot last year. I was doing it as my only Zerg vs. TERRAN build for quite a while. Really good for 2 base roach openings and the like. And in general, what's so nice about a 15-15? A 15-15 gets your queens 11 seconds earlier, right? 10 to 11, or about 10, let's say 10. I think it's about 10. Depends on how you do the build. Therefore, you can skip lings. So this is one of the cool nerdy things about the 15-15. You don't need to build any lings. Or you can build just 2 lings from the natural. But since they're also 10 seconds early, they can sneak out before the Reaper arrives, right?
Mm-hmm.
And go kill the SCV on the CC. So this is where things get really interesting, is why the 15-15 was so attractive, is, hey, I don't need to build lings and lose 1 or 2 to the Reaper. I just build more drones. And yeah, you just basically get your queens so early. As you can imagine, 10 seconds earlier on queens means 10 seconds earlier in jacks. So you're just flooding out drones. Your 2 bases get saturated by like 3 minutes 10, 3 minutes 15. And you just have more minerals after an initial lack of minerals, because obviously going 15 hatchery, 15 pool, you are delaying getting to 16 drones on minerals. You're on 14 for quite a bit in that early stage on the actual mineral patch, while the other ones are building buildings. But it works out really nicely because you skip the lings, you potentially deny the SCV on the natural. Doesn't work at high level anymore because all the Terrans are used to this opening. It took them a long time to get used to it, but they did eventually. And whilst it's still a good opening, that I definitely see Raynor use quite a bit, a few other players, especially like Cyril has like a build where he goes full gasless with this, doesn't even take gas and gets to a really good spot. So that's pretty nice. Cool. I guess we move on to Hellions now. Just interrupt me at any point, poke me with any questions, let me know any thoughts you have.
How come it's, you mentioned some, at least one pro gamer who is sloppy with their timings even this early. What is it that they do instead then? Like, do they compensate in any way, or is it just
Sometimes they're
like
typing to their opponent in chat. Honestly, no.
okay.
There's a lot of laziness in StarCraft too. This is why Cyril is so beautiful to watch, because Cyril never has laziness in his build. Pretty much every other pro gamer goes through these periods where they let in these really lazy habits. Cyril and
Mhm.
Clem and MaxPax are probably the three most detail-oriented players who never let that happen. Raynor does let that happen a lot. He goes through cycles where he practices really hard and he cleans it up and he becomes a bit more perfect. But out of the Korean players, I think they've been freestyling for a long time. The Korean players are generally older than the European ones that came up as like a bit of a later generation. And I think they're just like, I know the early game. I don't need to focus on this. And they don't have coaches or team houses anymore. So these sort of basic things don't get fixed the way they would have back during like Casper or something like that, right? We see every game players with 3 workers on one gas, no workers on the other gas, right? When we know they should spread them across because the third worker
Yeah.
mines at a much slower rate. I see a lot of Terran players, Beyond especially, but a lot of players do this when they go to take a new base or build I want to go build a third base or a fourth or something out front. They'll always take workers from the base that is easiest rather than the base that is most efficient. So Clem, I don't think Clem does this very much, so he does sometimes, where they'll grab, they'll go, I need to throw down 3 more barracks in my main. And they'll go to their natural, which is undersaturated, and they'll grab 3 workers from there because that base is the newer base that they rallied to, and send them into their main, up into the top corner of their main. 12 second walking there, 10-12 seconds walking back to the minerals. They could just pull them off their main minerals. And it would actually be better to pull them off the main minerals, because then the main minerals will last longer and there will be less walking time. If your natural has 24 workers on it and there's a bunch not mining, I can get behind it, right? It makes sense to do that. But there's a lot of these little inefficient habits that just sneak through. StarCraft's incredibly hard and detail oriented, and there's a lot of things going on. So no matter how good you are, it's kind of like if you go to like soccer practice, football practice, or whatever, you're still just going to start by just passing the ball back and forth, right? You're going to do the most basic shit every single week because the basic fundamentals are important. And it's like that in any sport or any musical practice or anything like that. You're still going to practice your very basics. But it's something in StarCraft pros just need to like focus on the build order, the tiny little second here or there, focus on the grand strategy, and they need to kind of bounce between these different topics and focus on one at a time. And I've always said that what's kind of cool about StarCraft, I know some people would lament it, is it's not like a classic sport. If you are really talented and you have a bunch of coaches telling you what to do, you do not need to be a self-motivated genius of the game to be top in a very physical sport, right? You don't need to be a genius because the coaches do that for you. But in StarCraft, if you want to be Cyril, you have to have Cyril's brain, not just his hands. He is the most planning oriented, obsessed, motivated guy out of all of the pros. And he has been for 7 years straight. 8 years, 9 years maybe, because obviously it's not like he just won every tournament without getting obsessed, right? So he just, you can tell he's thought more about everything. His build orders, every tournament I watch, my eyes are glued to the screen because I'm like, oh, there's real intention here. Raynor goes into series as a player who's incredibly talented, and I always give him as the example of someone else. I think he's more talented in terms of like the speed of the game than Cyril, but he's definitely, his openings are often, Raynor's attitude to tournaments has often in the past been, and I think he's gotten better at this recently, I'm just going to play my game, right? I'm going to go in there and I'm going to do my thing. Whereas Cyril's got like a friggin' complex flowchart that no one knows but him. And I think he revealed quite a few things when I did the 2-hour interview with him early last year after he dominated Katowice, where, he's like, oh yeah, because I was asking him about builds and he's like, oh yeah, I had this all in planned, but then it wasn't good for it. Like whatever he saw in the game, he didn't feel it would work, so he just played standard. And then talking to him about that, it sounded like he's done that many times, where he's literally shelved all-ins that he's had prepared, but he doesn't quite see the right opportunity, and he holds on to them for like years because he just keeps not seeing the right opportunity. And because he doesn't spam tournaments, he only plays the biggest events. No one else does that. Like no one else hangs on to their all-ins like that. Most players blow their wad. They blow out their best builds in a random online cup for $300, right? $400.
Right.
Cyril never does that. So Cyril is his best own coach And that's like a special skill where I don't think that would set him as far apart from everyone else. If there was like, let's say we've got $2 million, $3 million a year prize money for the last few years in StarCraft. Imagine if it was $50 million prize money and there was 5 times, 10 times as many people watching, right? And whatever the thing is. And you've got so much more money in the scene. You've got more coaches, you've got more experts studying, helping the heroes, the darks, the rainers, basically fix all those basics and just be more detail oriented on everything. And I think that would close the gap between Cyril and everybody else significantly. Cool. Back to ZvT. So Hellions, obviously that's super variable. Let's talk about it. I mean, we want to go super nerdy, so why not? Barracks gas, normal Hellions. Yeah, I guess it kind of depends on a few things, but I would say 345 for Hellions could technically dive. So if we think about it, basically factory usually starts at about, let's say, 207. Factory takes, I think, 43 seconds to build. Factory SC2. I actually don't know what the build time is on this. 43? Yeah, it is 43. Okay, apparently I do know these timings. I just don't think I do. So that's going to finish at 250. Factory starts, finishes at 250. Reactor takes 36 seconds as well, I believe. Exact same time. Let's check. Yeah, 36 seconds as well. Reactor finishes at 3 minutes 26. Yeah, okay. I mean, oh no, because obviously you're swapping onto the reactor, aren't you? You don't need to do that. Let's say, how long do we think an add-on swap takes? What would you say off the top of your head, Christian?
5 seconds.
5 seconds? Yeah, it's like perfect. If we do it perfectly, right? I'd say 5 seconds. Yeah. So I guess we should probably apply that. Yeah, I wonder. I really wonder now. If you're perfect with it, is it 5 seconds or is it even longer? Because it feels like it takes a second to lift off, move. Yeah, I don't know. Interesting. Let's say 6 seconds for now. Swap to reactor. Let's say 6 seconds. And then that means at 256, we're ready to build Hellions. Hellions take 21 seconds, which means add 42 seconds to that. 4 Hellions are out at 4 Hellions, 41 second build time, 42, sorry. It has been a long time since I've gone this deep on the little timings. So what would that be? 342 minus 6, 336, right? 336, 4 Hellions are out. They can run across the map. Yeah, I think 4 minutes, which is basically what they said in the document, in the guide. 4 Hellions could run in. Okay. If it's a gas first, though, gas first, factory starts, could be as early as 150. Let's say 155. Technically, it can be earlier, but I don't think you have the money to start the reactor instantly. Then again, no, the reactor can be delayed because of the build time, the lift time. So while it's finishing, the factory can be floating into position and then instantly landing, right? Factory starts, that should be 15 seconds faster. So if it's gas first, it could be 345 for Hellion run by. Basically, it shaves 15 seconds off your build, right? Yeah. I'm not sure if 207 is kind of pressing it for how early it is. Because most people go Reaper, then Marine, then Reactor. Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, it'd be about 15 seconds. Maybe slightly more than that, depending on when that factory does actually go down. So I'd need to check replay for that one. But you can shave a few seconds off with that. So Liberator can hit you probably, let's say 430, maybe 420. Yeah, I think they could hit you with a Liberator. And the thing is, likewise, all of these can be a little faster with gas first, right? Banshee can technically hit you at 420, only if playing versus Gumiho's gas first build. Versus anyone else, it's closer to 5 minutes. Which is why... So, Spores at 445 is actually completely safe. Versus 95% of TERRAN, right? Like, you can actually just get them so late and have more money, right? So knowing that 4 Hellions could run in at 345 and always saying, I need to have 20 Zerglings out and 5 Queens by 345, that's going to actually be a bad call, right? Being ready for this every game is bad. You'll hurt your own economy, right? You want to have, oh, you know what? I've got the 6 Zerglings from the early game and I've got 4 Queens. As long as they're well positioned, hopefully I can defend it. I might lose some drones, but you know, you kind of have to toe that line, right? That's towing the line of greed. Same with the Banshee, right? If we don't actually, obviously, ideally, we scout things specifically and we can kind of see what's going on. But yeah, where is the document available? Well, you're going to have to ask FlyRev in chat if he wants to share these timings with you guys. As that's who's on call with me right now. We're doing a bit of coaching. Your goal was to make this public, right, Christian?
Sure.
Cool. So, I mean, we can copy paste this into a public document or something, and we can share it in chat at the end of the coaching session, I guess. Yeah, we can do that. So yeah, likewise, spores at 445 is completely safe. But if you see a gas first, right? If you see a guy who's gone insanely fast into that, like Gumiho will often not even build a reactor. He just builds Hellions one at a time, because he wanted to go for the Banshee so fast. So he's just trying to like clear the overlords with Marines. Then he gets 3 Hellions built one at a time out of the factory. That's still enough to one-shot drones or Zerglings, but you know, it's not nearly as scary as like 4 or 6. And then he hits with that really fast Banshee as well.
Yeah. What I often do is that I build a reactor and then I get supply blocked and only build 1 Hellion anyway, because the second one won't build because I'm blocked. So that's another alternative, right?
My man, I've done that build before as well. That's a special. I guess BC is probably gonna hit 530 earliest in most games. I can't really see it hitting. I guess 520 earliest. More often closer to 6 minutes. Yeah. I mean, I did a fastest BC ever. We can use that to benchmark. Fastest BC ever SC2 pig. Let's go. The very dumb video I did. I'll link it in chat and I'll just link it to you on Discord as well. I'm pretty sure the first game I probably would have been pressing it a little bit hard. All right. So what time do I teleport this BC? Oh my god, this BC is so early. And this is literally me like cutting SCVs at the start of the game, like that level of stupidity. So yeah, it's going to be like 434, I think it pops out. Yeah, so it's finished teleporting 440 is when it actually starts shooting. So let's just say 440. Technically, a baboon can cut workers from the very start and hit, have the teleport finished at 440. It was funny because I remember I did this video and people were like, that isn't the fastest BC ever. I went in unit tester or, you know, in an empty custom map and I got it, you know, 20 seconds earlier. And I'm like, yeah, guys, like technically I can get it earlier, but like, you know, when there's adepts and stalkers and immortals and shit attacking my base, like it's a bit different, you know? You know, like they were like, oh, I mean, do you have a wall off? They're like, no. I'm like, okay, come on, man. Like, what the fuck are you doing? You don't have any units. Like, I could just I make a video where I hop in an empty custom game and just sit there. I'm like, look, guys, I built a thing in this time. It's not exactly very riveting content, nor is it very interesting. But yeah, I mean, there's always someone. Yeah. Did you want to go over how to like defend these timings as well, by the way, or?
Not necessarily. One question that appeared when you talk about this is why isn't gas first more popular? This seems like a lot of time can be.
Sorry, say again. Off. Why isn't gas first more common?
Yeah.
Oh. Just because you think it. Yeah, I mean, it gives you less minerals, so the reaper's a little slowed down. It's an interesting thought. Why isn't gas first more popular? So basically with gas first, you can't afford to build a second barracks unit if you want to reactor swap. Okay? So normally you'll build a marine, and if 2 lings come in, you can defend with a marine, and pulling SCVs, you don't need to use your Reaper, right? So if two lings sneak by, defending that without a marine is a pain in the ass, right? You don't want to have to bring your Reaper all the way home. So that's one thing. Your CC is later. You delay your orbital a few seconds and miss SCV production because your barracks is a few seconds later, right? So basically, this is all the flow-on effective because you went gas before barracks. Your barracks is like 4 or 5 seconds later, whatever it is, right? Doesn't sound huge, but that means your command center is 4 or 5 seconds later. Well, guess what? Does that mean you build an extra SCV and go 21 orbital rather than 20? Well, no, because the orbital is still the more important thing, but it means you miss that 5 seconds of SCV production, right? Which is almost half an SCV. So command center is later, orbital's later, because the barracks is later. You can't, and your factory is faster. You can't squeeze the marine in. So there's a few weaknesses to it. If you play it against Protoss, you're very light on units, right? Normally, like if you go Reaper plus fast expand, that Reaper, if it dies, you just feel naked as well. Like you don't really have anything else. If you Reaper plus fast expand and gas first and SCV scout, you're just broke. You just don't have enough money. Like SCV scout feels very bad with gas first, in my opinion. So because you just don't have the minerals to really feel like you can do everything. So that's personally why I find that kind of awkward. I still think it's a good build. Gumiho does it a lot. A bunch of other Terrans do it a fair amount. And it was funny because there was a period, first 2-3 years of Legacy, no one did it. Maybe the first year and a half, I would say. Then there was like 4 years where everyone only went gas first every game. And now that the game's gone in such a hyper-economic direction, everyone's just like, nah, faster natural, faster third CC. If you open gas first and you want to use all that tech, oh, I want to build faster Banshees, I want to build faster Hellions or Libs or whatever, it just feels like your third command center kind of gets put on the back burner as well. You kind of end up in this situation where it's quite delayed. Actually, I came up with a build, help deal with the slower economy, crappy third timing of this for ZvT. And I never ended up practicing it much, and I wish I did more. Basically, it was a gas first Hellion dive, Hellion plus lib diving harassment opening with a third CC behind it, all off 1 gas. And that was the difference, as I realized that the only way I could do this and have a decent third timing is I have to delay the second gas. And that would give me the extra mineral mining and minerals, 75 minerals from the refinery, the build time of that, which is 21 seconds of mining time on a single SCV, plus the 3 SCVs that start mining it. And that might slightly slow down my Liberator, you know, might slow down Lib slightly, or more importantly, mean we don't have a lot of gas banked for the transition, but allows a much faster third. And what's great about that is then you could go off of this opening, just take, 3 gases all at once behind it for my mech transition. Now I like to do the mech transition, right? Problem with this build, I don't have a tech lab necessarily, and I just, if I do get surprised by like a roach attack or something like that, a big roach ravager ling, single gas, 3 command center, Hellions and a lib, kind of vulnerable, right? I basically, weakness equals ravager, roach ravager ling, right? Ravager ling timings that I don't spot. So it's kind of like you just have to see everything with your constant Hellion dives, and aggression. So it's a little bit of a risky build, I would say, in that you're both being highly aggressive and highly economic. And if you're doing both of those with harassment and economy at the same time, usually it means you're open to some sort of counter aggression. But yeah, I found that was a nice way of balancing it. But if you don't do that, you'll often see a game where Gumiho's got crazy damage with like really fast Banshee surprising the opponent, Hellions dancing around, all of the weird little twists he adds in there. oh, he killed 30 drones in this early game. You're like, oh, he's still down 20 supply. And because his third isn't landing at 5 minutes, like it so often is for Clem and everything, it's landing at 7 minutes, right? You know, it just that 2 minutes makes such a big difference with the way the economy snowballs in modern Legacy of the Void Starcraft 2. So that's kind of a big thing, yeah.
Yeah, so that build you would like be annoying with the Hellions for as much as you can, and then Liberator would come in at 420 or something, and then just kill everything else.
I think I would normally do it as like a 4 Hellion dive, followed up by another 4 to 6 Hellion plus Liberator combo. You know, where you Liberator in the main, Hellions dive. So because with a gas first, you really want to use the first Hellion timing because it's 20 seconds faster, 15 seconds faster than like a normal one. So it's for me, it feels like if you're going gas first against Zerg, dive those first Hellions. They're not going to have link speed a lot of the time at that point. A lot of people delay their link speed quite a lot. You know, their queens might be out of position. It can catch them off guard. And yeah, if people aren't used to it, it's kind of crazy. Like if I play the guys who are under 4.8k who I occasionally run into on ladder, they just die to the first Hellions and the Reaper a lot of the time, you know, because they've spent all of their energy on creep. Their queens are all kind of scattered, and I'll be like, oh, there's just like I either run in and kill all the drones, or I just start killing queens, even with the first 4 Hellions and Reaper. You know, you're bouncing them around and just picking them off one at a time. And you kind of go, oh. And I'm like, oh, you've been playing against Terrans who all play Barracks Gas. You've been playing against, you know, Terrans who don't really attack with their Hellions anymore. And you can just casually build up your queens, and, you know, the Hellion player is just afraid of engaging, you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's chat talking about? Let's see if they've got some really good points here. I think they might. I tried to gas first a bunch with Protoss when I came back to SC2. It's very strong. You're super vulnerable to cheese since you can't really scout. I don't think it's useful at all, actually, Adam. It's bad. You're better off going gateway than double gas is actually going to pay off more. And Hero has a cool build where he does that in PvT, where he goes, because the Terrans don't scout, he goes gateway, double gas, and he goes for the Nexus after a bit, and it allows him to open with a Sentry and go Phoenix behind it. And because he goes Sentry Stalker, Terran assumes, cool, you're playing like this style. I go Widowmine drop first that. They fly in, they go, what the fuck? How do you have Phoenix? And he goes, I went 2 gases before Nexus, idiot. Like, I can afford a Sentry, a Stalker, and go Stargate Phoenix at the same time. And it's basically a trap build. Worked really well on Maru, because Maru's been very predictable lately. And he just tried to Widowmine drop into it, which was not smart. But I don't think it works on Clem as well, because Clem always goes for a 6 Marine mine drop, which is a bit more flexible, won't get hunted down by the Phoenix. He can unload the Marines and get out of there. Yeah. Cool. Okay, they're talking PvZ. No worries. All good, all good. Interesting to see if there was any points there. Yeah, how do you defend the Zerg versus Terran timings? Queens beat everything is generally the rule, right? Queens beat everything, and you can either build lings at set times, right? So I might say for a new player, so Plat League advice, right? And this could apply across multiple leagues, but I'd be like, 4 minutes, build 20 lings, then go back to drones. Like I might just say something like that, right? And then we can say like GM advice is if you see lots of Hellions, you know, moving out, basically just build lings to react to Hellions you see, right? Assuming you start with 4 lings, you see 4 Hellions, move out, go up to 12 Zerglings or something like that, right? And the idea being queens on the front line, they're the trident, and the lings are the net. And I've been using this analogy forever. What's the isn't it like is it the Myrmidon or whatever the Roman gladiator trident net. What's that guy called? The Retiarius, the net fighter. Yeah, basically your defense is a good old Retiarius. You're one of these guys. Have you got the stream open, Christian?
Yeah, I can see the picture.
See,
yeah,
okay.
That's funny.
Basically, the queen's pointy and fuck shit up, and he will have to try to zip around them and run past, and that's when the net catches him. Zerglings, if they ever run off creep, they get destroyed. If they ever clump up, they get destroyed. But they're just there to stop him running past the queens. That's their whole job.
Right.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Queens beat everything. Overlord vision is really key. Overlord vision is super key to be in the right spot at the right time. Yeah. And the thing is, like, I don't really... If we go past all that info, right? What if we go to... Oops. What about ZvT TERRAN kill timings? Like, 2-base push. I just don't think it's important. I don't think it's important to know, in theory, when that hits. Unless you know, everyone's doing the same build, right?
Right.
But I imagine everyone's going to do it from different scenarios. It's more important to just know your basics, right? Of scouting. Right? Signs of greed versus signs of aggression. What do I mean when I say signs of greed versus signs of aggression? Essentially, no eBay. Okay, only single eBay. That's a sign of aggression, right? I guess we can just make a list, make this cleaner. Signs of aggression. Only single eBay. Lots of barracks up early, right? No third CC. And, you know, signs of greed. Third CC. Double eBay. If you see double forge, double eBay, you see a third command center. These are all signs of greed, right? Yeah. And then the barracks are later, right? So maybe it's something where you can benchmark the barracks timings yourself to kind of know when they should be going down with a different build. But I think usually for me, it's just, is there a third command center? Is the main one. And that's really the main thing I'm looking for when I scout a TERRAN. And you can usually tell, oh, I'm looking for, like, I think a third command center should be almost finished now. You fly through with your Overlord Overseer and you're like, there's a bunch of barracks, all with reactors already finished on them, pumping out units. You just can't have a command center. You should just be able to feel that, right? That should be like a feeling we should always be able to have, is like, oh, I normally scout at this timing every game. And I guess that's where consistency comes in, right? Where it's always, it's the players who are really inconsistent in how they play who really struggle to learn, because they see the barracks of their Overseer scout sometimes at 5 minutes, because for some reason they made the craziest fast layer of all time. Other times at 7 minutes. But they're kind of looking at it through the same lens. Like, they're blind to how different the scouting timing is. Whereas if you're like, no, like, I have a pretty solid build. My layer always finishes around the 6 minute mark, and I always make an Overseer and go scout. That scouting information is always going to be something where you can compare across different games. But if you're scouting at 5 minutes one game, 7 the next, 9 the next, scouting at those timings is going to mean completely different things, because, you know, they could have gone for the third base and finished the barracks already by the time it's 9 minutes. It doesn't mean they're doing it all in, even though you don't see the third command center, right?
Right.
So yeah, that is a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, so what would we do instead? Just have general rules, like if we're playing against a 2-base timing, stop at 60 drones. 4 gases. Something like that, right? Easy peasy. Assuming we're playing Lingbane anyway. Might need more gas if we're playing roaches. And then you just mass army, right? If you just have general rules like that, most of StarCraft is just about basic investment. It's, am I putting my money into army, economy, or tech? Upgrades in tech can go together. Upgrades in tech lead to very obvious advantages at very set times. I made Storm, now Storm is finished. I can make Psy Storms. I made +2. +2's now done. I have Stim Shields. It's ready. I have Roach Speed and +1/1. Let's go, you know. That's very self-explanatory. But economy, if you invest in economy, that is the most useful thing in terms of flexibility, because you can use it to then invest in anything, right? If you invest in more economy, it is the thing that allows you to win games in general, because it can be spent on whatever you need. Oh, we're playing late game. I can make all the tech, all the upgrades. I can make even more economy with it. Or I can make army. Army is also something which is interesting because it can keep you safe, but that in itself is not a great use of our money, right? Oh, I built army. This keeps me safe, right? If we sit on 20 drones massing roaches, we end up fucked in the long run because we're just not doing anything with our investment, right? But if we can build an economic advantage is always our goal. That's the key. So the core fundamental investment goal of SC2 on a basic level that applies across all matchups, all races, but Zerg's the nicest to think of this as because it's so reactive with its production. Build economy advantage. Make army to defend economy advantage. Go kill them with army and tech upgrade advantage. Yeah. Make army and tech and upgrades to defend economy advantage and go kill them with that army. The big mistake most players make, go back to building economy and more tech upgrades without and completely miss the timing to go use the advantage in tech upgrades army that they have right now. This is what I call like the bronze to GM, kind of from the original Vibe bronze to GM mistake. They're like, just keep macroing, just keep macroing, just keep macroing, just keep macroing. And then they move across, they move halfway across the map. Then they look at home, they keep macroing. Then they move 3/4 the way across the map. They look at home, keep macroing. They could have already hit the guy 40 seconds earlier. And then they A move, and then they look at home and keep macroing. And that's like, number one, you've given the guy an extra minute and a half to get ready. And your advantage has been slipping away that whole time. Number two, you're not looking at your army, you're not microing it as well. So you're throwing all your leads away, which is just bad. It's just a terrible way of playing StarCraft. Whereas if you understand, hey, I built an economy advantage, I've defended it, that's great, let's go kill them. And the hack to make sure that you actually remember to do this is, even when building army tech upgrades to defend, already be thinking about your attack timing, right? So even if someone's in my face with like an Immortal Zealot push, I'm already thinking about that. When +2 range finishes with my Roach Hydra and I get my second Hydra upgrade finished, I want to be at his base attacking him. Even though right now, yes, I'm just in survival mode, that's my goal. But a lot of people, they defend and then they just hold the fucking drone key down and they're like, herp, derp. And I'm like, what are we doing? What's that for? And they don't know what they're doing with the drones. They're like, oh, maybe I'll make an infestation pit and a spire and a second and a third Evo chamber. And I'm like, which one of these are we committing to? And then like, I'm going to make every upgrade. Maybe I'll make some muters. Maybe I'll get neural. And I'm like, no, like, because then you're just basically, I'm trying to think of a good analogy. Basically, if money and investment in StarCraft was milk, you're basically taking your milk and you're just pouring it into holes on the ground and going, look at all my milk. I'm so rich. I mean, you're just like sitting there and watching the milk rot and all this mold is growing and you're just like, what are you doing? Like all of your money is worth so little. So in StarCraft, you need to make sure your money is actually worth something as well. Whereas too many people, they're like, macro is the most important thing, and they never learn how to hit a timing attack or anything like that. So the easiest way to do it is be greedy, then go fucking kill them off the advantage you got from that greed. That's like StarCraft 2 101. And that's essentially it. Yeah. Build economy, make army tech upgrades to defend economy advantage, skip the mistake step that everyone makes, go kill them with that army and tech upgrade. And cheat sheet, little hack. Even when building army tech upgrades to defend, already be thinking about your attack timing so you can commit hard to it. Because timing matters and delays matter. StarCraft is all about those timings, right? A lot of other games have stronger defender's advantage, slower armies, all sorts of things. But StarCraft 2 is a game of sharp windows where stuff destroys or gets destroyed. Cool. How long have we been on call, by the way? Sorry, I know we're only talking about Zerg versus TERRAN, but I guess, I mean, your goal was mostly to just nerd out over stuff rather than cover every matchup in detail, I hope.
Yep.
Cool.
So the third CC that you have involved there, what would be the latest? Like, when would you conclude that they're not gonna do eco?
No
like,
conclusion
how long
required.
can you delay?
See, that's the wrong mindset. If you haven't seen the third command center, just keep building units off 60 drones.
Right.
If you see the third command center, you can build more, or you can just go fucking kill them, because their third's already late. Just go fucking kill them. You've made a giant army, so turn your defense into offense. So it's 12 minutes 37 seconds into the game. They never moved out. Now they're taking. Now I see them starting a third CC on location. Okay. Instinct equals drone. Drone up. Or you can just take a free win. Go fucking kill him. On an investment level, if you've been mining off 3 or 4 bases, 60 drones for 5, 6, 7 minutes, and they've been on 2 bases that whole time, their main's mined out, or mostly mined out, you're mining 3 times as much as them, right? For at least a minute or two, at least a few minutes. And the rest, they're not mining at all. So just go fucking kill him, right? Rather than droning. I mean, don't get me wrong, if he has the sickest defensive position of all time, maybe we do drone up. But we shouldn't need to do that, right? Because we should have so much more stuff than them from mining off an extra base for so long. So that's why that's always really nice. Sometimes we get stuck in a defensive mindset. We go, because I'm defending a 2 base timing. And the 2 base timing doesn't come, and our brains short circuit. We go haywire. We go, what do I do? But it's like, well, you think of it, and this goes back to the point I did before. That little hack down below. Even when building army and tech and upgrades to defend, already be thinking about your attack timing. So what you're really thinking, you weren't even defending. You were just preparing a 2-2 Massling Bane timing the whole time. Yeah. That's all. You know? Him trying to take that third base is just your opportunity as he moves out to fuck him up, right? So yeah. Like you're out there with your army spread in 3 places and you're just winning. Yeah. So that's always a really good thing to remember. Yeah. Sometimes we get too defensive or too reactive, and like you'll watch these kind of crazy, aggressive, risky players who gamble a lot, and they'll just like attack in these situations you would never think to attack, or they'll get in there and just do stuff. And sometimes it's legitimately a bad idea, but other times they find these little windows where you're like, oh yeah, of course you can attack there. I was thinking too much about being the defender in this situation. Oh yeah. So it's always eye-opening watching a hero or someone attack when he shouldn't, or when you think he shouldn't, and you realize, oh yeah, it's actually a great idea.
Yeah. Cool. Right. Cool. I'll paste this into a public document and share it with your
chat's getting excited for it, yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. Let's see if there's any other really good comments in chat as well. What are good benchmarks for number of queens at each timestamp? Don't know. Fuck me sideways. What would that be? I have no idea, dude. Let's go to that queens defend everything, right? General benchmark would probably be normally we start a third queen about 310, something like that. Maybe 320. And then maybe earlier than that, actually. Maybe 4th queen comes out at 320, which means, yeah, I think you can try to have 5 queens at 4 minutes, but the important thing is don't compromise your droning for that, right? Don't compromise your droning too hard. So there's a balance between building drones and defense, always. But especially since queens are so expensive and everything is about minerals early in ZvT, you need to saturate your natural as quickly as possible, only delaying droning to start your third queen early. Maybe delay a few drones to get the fourth and fifth. But if you rush 5 queens with only 6 drones on your natural, you're already dead. Like, you literally just killed your own economy. So often what you'll see is someone will be like, oh, I want to squeeze a 4th queen in here, and then they'll build up a few more drones, they'll put a few more drones, and they'll squeeze a 5th queen in, that sort of thing. If you can have 5 queens at 4 minutes, then that's great. And then you can build 2 or 3 more from there, or 3 or 4 more from there to get to 8 or 9 queens total. 8 to 9 queens every game is super solid for ZvT. Yeah. Flyrev the legend. Thank you, Flyrev. Appreciate that, mate.
Right.
My man. All right, guys. Yeah. We can throw those notes up somewhere as well. Cool. I don't know. Let me throw that in the Zerg discussion channel in my Discord as well, just so we've got it somewhere where people can see. Zerg coaching on defensive timings and theory in ZvT today. Flyrev was nice enough to share the notes. Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right.
Thank you, Professor.
Yeah. No worries, mate. I hope you had got something out of it. Yeah, I hope you're having a good day and stuff. Motivate you maybe to get some more Zerg vs TERRAN games in.
Yep, for sure, for sure.
Any last questions?
There was one guy asking in chat, what is the timing for identifying a baboon? Like, what's the benchmark there? Like 2:30?
Yeah. I think usually if you're really on point, you can identify by 2.5 minutes, but sometimes it takes like up to about 5 or 6 minutes. You want to watch for like really interesting techniques. So like a TERRAN who's like surprisingly high level without ever queuing an SCV back to building minerals from building buildings. They just like spam their idle worker button after the building's done and tell them to go back. Or a Zerg who doesn't know how to use control groups. So they just set their rally point to your base whenever they're attacking. You can identify this. If you don't notice in the heat of the action, it's because after the fight, you'll see a stream of overlords rallying into your base, and you'll go, what the fuck? And you'll realize my opponent doesn't know how to use control groups. They're a moron. Thank you, Askurian, for the tip, mate. Really appreciate it. And thanks, thanks, Flyrev. Appreciate it, mate. Good luck identifying some baboons out there on the ladder, mate.
Thank you.
Cheers, dude. Have a good night. Laters. Bye.